Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're not just giving you a plot summary. We're really digging into the first part of Alexandre Dumas' The Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah, we're looking for those fascinating insights, those human dramas that are kind of buried in the text.
Exactly. Think of it like we're trying to understand the ignition point for this whole epic story of revenge.
And the setting is crucial, isn't it? We're in France, early 19th century. Napoleon's shadow still looms large.
Right. It's unstable. You've got political upheaval, societal shifts.
A real pressure cooker. Old ways clashing with new ambitions, and these deep political divides running through everything.
Okay, so who are the key players we meet right at the start? The ones whose lives get tangled up immediately.
Well, there's Edmond Dantes, obviously. Young sailor, lots of promise. Then you have Fernand Mondego and Danglars. They're presented as acquaintances, maybe friends.
But maybe not really friends.
Exactly. There's a hint of something else simmering there.
Yeah.
And Mercedes, Dante's fiancée.
And on the other side, you have Villefort, the ambitious deputy prosecutor.
Climbing the ladder, yeah. And M. Morel, who's Dantes' employer, seems like a genuinely good guy.
So our mission here is to really unpack these initial events, the betrayals, the injustice.
And really focus on why. What's motivating these characters? What are the immediate consequences of their choices?
Yeah.
Because they ripple outwards, don't they?
They really do. Okay, so let's start with that engagement feast. Dantes and Mercedes. It looks like pure joy on the surface.
It does. But Dumas is so clever. He immediately sows these seeds of, well, discord. It's subtle, but it's there.
You mean with Fernand and Danglars?
Precisely. While everyone else is celebrating, you get these descriptions of Fernand pacing, looking pale, almost sick with envy.
And Danglars is watching him.
Right. Danglars is watching Fernand watch the happy couple. It's this triangle of observation, and none of it feels good. It makes you lean in and think, okay, what's really the dynamic here?
And then Caderousse pipes up, a bit drunk, maybe.
Yeah, a bit too much wine, perhaps. And he lets slip something about a trick they were planning against Dantes. He seems to regret it now, or at least voice some unease.
Which is crucial. It shows the betrayal wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment thing.
Exactly. It had been brewing. That envy, that resentment, it was festering. It makes you think how often that happens just below the surface.
It really does. And Dumas uses these little details, these glances and muttered words, to build this incredible sense of impending doom.
It feels fragile, doesn't it? Like this happiness is built on shaky ground and is just waiting to be shattered. Even if you know the story, you feel that tension.
And shattered it is. Right when they're about to leave for the wedding ceremony, Mercedes even mentions the time.
Dantes is all eager anticipation.
And then bam, the mood just plummets.
The arrival of the authorities. It's so sudden, so jarring. The sounds of celebration just vanish, replaced by this heavy, awful silence.
You hear the soldiers on the stairs. The description is so vivid.
The heavy boots, the clanking equipment. It's like the law itself is physically barging in, disrupting everything.
It's like flipping a switch into darkness. And Fernand's reaction, Dumas describes a convulsive spasm. He almost collapses.
Yeah, that's more than just surprise, isn't it? It screams guilt. Or maybe fear of being implicated.
Did he know this was coming? Or is it just the shock hitting someone with a guilty conscience?
It definitely suggests some kind of deeper involvement, or at least a terrible fear. It's not just, oh, the police are here.
So Dantes is arrested. In the immediate chaos, what do we hear?
Danglars mutters the hypocrite, which is just dripping with jealousy and malice.
Hypocrite about what, though? It's so vague, but so damning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you get Caderousse, who, despite being in on that earlier trick, now calls Dantes a noble-hearted young fellow.
Which shows, what? That even people who do bad things can recognize goodness. Or maybe just that he's trying to distance himself now.
It's complex, isn't it? Maybe a bit of both. It highlights that people aren't always just one thing. Flawed, yes, but maybe capable of seeing virtue.
Then M. Morel arrives. He's worried about Dantes, obviously, but also his ship, the Pharaon. It needs its captain.
Understandable concern for his business, his livelihood.
And who's right there ready to step into the breach?
Danglars, of course, offers to take command. Even says he'd happily give it back when Dantes returns.
It sounds so helpful, but feels so opportunistic.
Completely calculated. He gets power, looks concerned, and covers his tracks all in one go. Classic self-interest disguised as helpfulness.
Okay, let's shift gears to Villefort. We meet him, and right away, Dumas frames him in terms of ambition.
Yeah, we see him being all tender with his fiancée, Renée, But then there's that encounter with the Marquis and Marquise.
Right, the parents-in-law-to-be, and it sets up his whole dilemma.
The Marquis has high hopes for him, calls him a moral and political physician.
Big expectations.
But then the Marquise drops that comment about his father.
Yes, the political baggage. His father, Noirtier, is a known Bonapartist, right? Which is dangerous for Villefort, who's trying to make his way as a royalist.
Precisely. It's this shadow hanging over him. And Villefort's response, this carefully crafted speech about his father supposedly seeing the light and becoming a royalist, and how he, Villefort, is utterly devoted to the crown.
It sounds completely rehearsed, doesn't it? Like he's pleading a case in court, not having a conversation.
That's exactly how Dumas describes it. He's watching their reactions, gauging the impact. It's not about truth. It's about managing perceptions, protecting his career.
Which shows a fundamental flaw, right? Ambition over principle, especially dangerous in a prosecutor.
Absolutely. And the contrast when we cut to Dantes arriving at the Chateau d'If, it's brutal.
From his wedding feast to an underground dungeon.
The description is so visceral. The damp walls impregnated with tears. The single flickering lamp, the sullen jailer, it's instant desolation.
Dumas really makes you feel the physical horror of it.
He does, to emphasize the psychological blow.
And the jailer's words are just chillingly bureaucratic. Here's your room, bread, water, straw. That's all you need.
So dismissive, dehumanizing. And then he just leaves Dantes in total darkness, with the sound of dripping water. A perfect symbol of his despair.
It makes you think about the casual cruelty baked into the system.
And the speed. From the height of happiness to this absolute pit, it really drives home how fragile everything was for him.
So Dantes is reeling. He can't eat. He's tormented by what-ifs.
Yeah, especially the thought of escaping during the voyage. He thinks about his skills, his swimming, his languages.
Resources he had, opportunities he missed.
And how he could have been free with Mercedes, with his father. That regret piled on top of trusting Villefort's empty promises. It's crushing.
He just collapses in despair.
But not for long. Even then, something starts to stir. He begins demanding to see the governor.
It's a small thing, but it's defiance, isn't it? A refusal to just lie down and accept it.
Exactly. It's that flicker of resilience, that need for answers, for justice, however faint. It's the beginning of, well, the man he becomes.
While all this is happening to Dantes, the world outside is spinning. Napoleon returns from Elba.
Big news. Throws France into turmoil again. And Dumas brilliantly weaves this historical event directly into the plot. It's not just background noise.
How does it affect Villefort?
Well, initially it's bad news for a royalist like him. The Minister of Police is reporting to Louis VIII. Panic ensues. Napoleon probably would have fired Villefort. But his father, Noirtier, the influential Bonapartist, apparently pulls some strings.
Wow, so the father he's trying to distance himself from actually saves his career.
Isn't that ironic? It shows the complex tangle of family loyalty versus politics at the time. Old connections still mattered, even across enemy lines.
And the political winds shift so fast. The previous prosecutor gets the boot for suspected Bonapartism.
Yeah, fortunes change overnight. Meanwhile, in Marseille, things get violent. Old tensions reignite.
So Dantes' personal tragedy isn't happening in a vacuum. It's caught up in this larger national chaos.
Absolutely. It underscores how vulnerable individuals were to these big political swings. Personal lives caught in the gears of history.
Meanwhile, M. Morel, bless him, keeps trying to help Dantes. He shifts from asking for mercy to demanding justice.
He points out, maybe a bit naively, how harsh the royalists are being towards anyone linked to Bonaparte, trying to appeal to Villefort's supposed loyalty.
How does Villefort react?
With chilling indifference. He deflects, talks about procedures, governors, prefects, basically washes his hands of it.
Protecting himself.
Entirely. Dantes is now a dangerous loose end, a reminder of a political mess Villefort wants buried. His ambition completely overrides any sense of justice or empathy for Dantes.
It's a stark contrast to how he was with René earlier. Power corrupts, or maybe just
Perhaps reveals what was always lurking beneath the surface. Self-preservation is his prime directive now.
Fast forward 17 months. We get this glimpse of Dantes during a prison inspection.
And the inspector thinks 17 months isn't that long.
But for Dantes,
An eternity, 17 ages he calls it. He's lost everything, his love, his career, his freedom. He's not even asking for release, just a trial.
just to know why, to face his accusers. The injustice is just screaming off the page.
You can feel his desperation. That line, "Oh, you do not know what is 17 months in prison." It hits hard. It highlights that gap in understanding between the free and the imprisoned. Time works differently when you're locked away.
Then the inspector mentions another prisoner, Abe Faria.
Right. Dismissed as mad.
Why? Because he claims to know about a hidden treasure.
Apparently.
Mhm.
And he keeps offering the government increasingly huge sums of money for his release. 1 million, then 2 million. It sounds completely crazy.
It does sound outlandish. Is he delusional? Or is there something more to it?
That's the question, isn't it? It makes you curious. The increasing sums just add to the strangeness.
But the name, Abe Faria, cell no, 27. You just know these details are going to be important.
It feels like a turning point. After all that isolation, Dantes is about to connect with someone. It's the first real glimmer of hope, however strange Forio might seem at first.
So Dantes hears this noise. Tapping. Scraping.
Yeah, a faint sound through the wall. And after years of silence, the realization that someone else is there, it's electrifying for him.
Hope floods back.
His brain was on fire, Dumas writes. Just that simple connection, the idea of it not being utterly alone, it's like a jolt of life.
And their first real interaction is digging.
Trying to dig through the wall to reach each other, a shared escape attempt. But Fourier is discouraged. He tells Dantes about his own failed attempt.
The one that took years.
Years. 4 years making tools, 2 years digging, moving stones. The sheer effort is incredible. It shows his brilliance and determination.
But it failed.
Yes, he hit an unexpected obstacle, a foundation wall he couldn't get through. Completely devastating. And now he refuses to try again. Says it must be God's will.
Is that wisdom, do you think, or just resignation? Giving up?
It's hard to say, maybe a bit of both. He seems to have shifted from fighting against the prison to waiting for an opportunity within it.
He talks about two kinds of ideas, right? Head versus heart.
Exactly. Rational planning versus emotional impulse. He says successful escapes, like the Duc de Beaufort or Latude, involved either meticulous planning or seizing a sudden, inspired chance.
So it's about balancing logic and opportunity.
Seems to be his point.
Mm-hmm.
He advises Dantes to be patient, wait for the right moment. A lesson for life, maybe, not just prison.
And Faria's own resourcefulness is just amazing. Stuck in a cell, yet he figures out how to make light tool.
Incredible ingenuity, using flints, burnt cloth for tinder, pretending to have a skin condition to get sulfur for matches.
He turns nothing into something.
In the hidden ladder, woven from threads over years, hidden behind his bed. It shows he never completely gave up hope.
For Dantes, seeing all this, it must have been mind-blowing. He starts to see Faria differently.
Yeah, not just as another prisoner, but as a mentor, someone incredibly intelligent who might actually understand why Dantes is there.
He starts thinking about what Faria could have achieved if he'd been free. There's real respect growing there.
And a dawning realization that maybe, just maybe, Faria holds the key not just to escape, but to understanding his own past.
Then Faria gets sick, suddenly violently ill.
Dantes immediately jumps in to help, cares for him. That shared vulnerability deepens their bond.
It's during this illness that Faria first mentions the treasure.
Yes, after Dantes helps him, gets back to his own cell just before the guard comes. Faria whispers something about being saved, and then, as he recovers slightly, the talk of treasure begins.
He insists it's real, and he wants Dantes to inherit it.
Yeah, he explains that everyone thinks he's mad precisely because he talks about this treasure. He knows how it sounds.
And Dantes' first thought is,
oh no, he's delirious. He thinks the illness has finally broken Faria's mind. He tries to gently change the subject, tells him he needs rest.
totally understandable reaction. After seeing Faria's sharp mind, talk of treasure seems like a massive red flag.
But Faria persists. He starts telling the story of the spotted treasure. And despite his skepticism, Dantes gets drawn in.
It's a compelling story. A powerful family, lost fortunes, a mysterious prayer book.
The details make it feel real. The Gothic script, the book being so heavy with hidden gold coins, it needed a servant to carry it. Faria is a good storyteller. Dantes starts to wonder.
So sadly, Faria dies. But he gives Dantes the means and the knowledge to escape.
He does. And Dantes finally makes it out. That first moment, seeing the sea, the sky, after 14 years.
It must have been overwhelming.
Awe, disorientation.
Yeah.
But then reality hits hard. He's free, but he's also a fugitive. Alone, naked, starving.
And he can still see the Chateau d'If looming there, a constant reminder.
He's lost the knife Faria gave him. He prays for help. He's gone from captain to be to the most vulnerable state imaginable.
But then a lifeline appears. A ship.
A Genoese tartan. His sailor's eye immediately identifies it. A flicker of real hope.
But they're smugglers, right? He has to be careful.
Exactly. He knows they won't help him out of kindness.
Yeah.
He needs a story, pretend to be a shipwrecked sailor, uses languages.
Smart, adaptable.
He has to be. He manages to get taken aboard and eventually finds himself in Leghorn, part of their smuggling crew.
He learns fast, observes them, earns their trust.
Yeah, the patron trusts him. He watches how they operate, their sort of rough camaraderie, their collective power, maybe filing that away for later.
And then their voyage takes them to
The island of Monte Cristo.
the fabled island, and Dantes remembers Faria's will, the specific instructions.
In the farthest angle of the second opening, those words become his map. He starts searching for that second cave.
And then, the moment.
Yeah.
The pickaxe hits something.
Iron. The chest. After all those years, all that suffering, the treasure is real.
That must have been profound. Life-changing doesn't even begin to cover it.
Dumas really emphasizes the impact. This is the moment Dantes' future shifts irrevocably. He now has the means for whatever comes next.
And what does he do first?
Shows generosity. He buys Jacopo, one of the smugglers who's been decent to him, his own boat.
Gives him money, too.
Yeah, and sends him back to Marseille with a crucial mission. Find out what happened to his father and to Mercedes.
He still doesn't know. He needs answers about his old life.
He spins a story about inheriting a fortune, but his real priority is finding out about them.
But the news Jacopo brings back, it's devastating.
His father is dead, starved himself to death in grief and poverty, apparently.
Oh, that's brutal. And Mercedes.
Vanished. No one knows where she went. The life he dreamed of returning to is just gone.
How does Dantes take it?
Outwardly calm, asked to be alone, but inside, the grief, the anger, it must be immense. This news solidifies his path. He sails for Marseille himself.
Now armed with immense wealth and a new identity brewing, he seeks out Caderousse, right? Disguised.
Yes, as the Abbé Busoni. He needs the truth about the betrayal, and he suspects Caderousse, being weak and perhaps guilty, might talk.
Caderousse and his wife La Carconte are wary at first.
Understandably. But the Abbé is persuasive, and then he dangles the bait.
The
supposed diamond Dantes left behind, worth 50,000 francs. Intended, the Abbé claims, to be shared among his friends, including Fernand and Danglars.
That gets Caderousse's attention. Greed loosens his tongue.
Instantly, he starts talking. And the first piece of news is about M. Morel.
The good man, what happened to him?
Financial ruin. His ship's lost, including the Pharaon. He's on the brink, his last hope pinned on that very ship miraculously returning, which of course it never will.
So Morel, who tried to help Dantes, suffered directly because of Dantes' imprisonment. That's heartbreaking.
It adds another layer to Dantes' motivation. It's not just about his own suffering anymore.
And then Caderousse spills the beans about Fernand.
Oh yes, Fernand's incredible rise. How did he get rich? How did he become Count de Morcerf?
Betrayal, it seems, during the war.
Caderousse claims Fernand deserted after Waterloo, joined the enemy, betrayed secrets, profited massively from treason, a stark contrast to Morel's loyalty and ruin.
While Dantes rotted in prison, Fernand built a fortune on dishonor.
Exactly. And we finally hear the definitive story of the Pharaon sinking too. A sailor named Penelon tells the tale of the storm, the hopeless fight. Adds to the tragedy of Morel's situation.
Okay, the narrative then jumps. We meet Franz d'Epinay arriving at Monte Cristo.
Right, accompanied by smugglers. And their leader, Gaetano, is spinning these tales about bandits on the island. Creates this air of mystery, danger.
Franz is skeptical at first.
Yeah, he seems more rational. But the island itself, when they see it, has this clear, almost magical quality.
And the welcome they get is unusual.
Very. This phrase, Sakamori, make yourself comfortable, but with a sense of ownership. It hints that someone powerful is in charge here.
Franz accepts the hospitality, but he's wary. Compares it to Ali Baba's cave, enchanted palaces.
He's intrigued, but also knows something's different here. He senses the power and the mystery surrounding his host.
And the Count's welcome is effortlessly lavish. References to Lucullus, ordering supper like it's nothing.
It's all designed to impress, maybe overwhelm, showing off his immense wealth and control.
Gaetano adds to the mystique, doesn't he? Describes the Count as fearing nothing, having Corsican brigands in his crew, this amazing yacht.
Building the legend. A man outside normal laws, accountable to no one.
Then we shift back to Rome. Albert and Franz planning for the carnival.
And Albert wanting a carriage no matter the cost. Shows his slightly spoiled privileged side. Franz seems a bit more practical.
But their fun gets interrupted. Franz gets captured by bandits.
Yes, Luigi Vampa's gang. Suddenly, those stories Gaetano told seem very real. There's a ransom demand. It gets serious fast.
We also meet Baron Danglars and a Countess G in Rome.
Part of that interconnected social world. Albert knows the Countess, offers to introduce Franz.
And the Countess seems oddly keen to have Franz escort her somewhere. Acts nervous.
Yeah, it's a bit strange, like she has some hidden reason for wanting him around. Her servants are surprised she comes back early. Has a little thread of intrigue there.
Then there's the execution. The Count offers them a prime viewing spot.
Treats it like just another part of the festival. A bit macabre.
Franz declines the front row seat, understandably.
It shows a difference in sensibilities, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The Count's detachment versus Franz's, well, normal human reaction.
There's that little moment where the Count stares at Albert and Albert gets self-conscious about his clothes.
Ha, yes. Shows Albert's vanity, his awareness of social status, even when faced with this incredibly enigmatic figure.
Then Franz gets that urgent letter from Albert, warning him off the Count.
Huge red flag. Albert has clearly seen or heard something that terrifies him. Stay away, danger. It ramps up the suspense.
And then the Count takes Franz to a hidden bandit camp.
Just casually reveals his connection to the underworld. Peppino, the darkness, the flickering light.
Yeah.
Very atmospheric, very intimidating.
Yeah.
Shows the extent of his reach.
Meanwhile, back in Paris, Albert's friends are dismissing his stories about the Count as unbelievable fantasies.
Debray, Beauchamp, they just don't buy it.
And right at that moment,
The Count himself walks in. Perfect timing. Utterly stunning the skeptics into silence.
his appearance is striking, isn't it? Simple clothes, but impeccable. He matches the description they were just mocking.
He just commands attention without trying. That quiet power again,
And he makes that strange comment to Albert about him having a noble heart.
which throws everyone, especially Morel, who seems to be putting pieces together. It suggests the Count knows more than he should.
Albert then tells his embarrassing bandit story, mistaking the girl, the pistol.
Yeah, highlighting his naivety, but also his admiration for how the Count just snapped his fingers and got him released. Reinforces the Count's power over figures like Luigi Vampa.
We also get the official story of Fernand's title, the barony.
Beauchamp explains it was bought, essentially. A huge loan to King Charles X in 1829. Sounds legitimate enough on the surface.
But Albert notices the Count speaks about his father, the Baron, almost like he knows him.
Another breadcrumb, hinting at a hidden connection.
Albert shows the Count his apartment, full of treasures.
And the Count recognizes everything. Japanese porcelain, Venetian glass, rare weapons. Shows his own incredible worldliness and knowledge, almost unnervingly knowledgeable.
Then Madame de Morcerf appears, Mercedes, and her reaction to seeing the Count.
Devastating. She goes pale, freezes, leans against the door, utter shock, and crucially, recognition. She heard his voice, saw him.
The past hitting her like a physical blow.
Absolutely. And the Count sees it. He subtly postpones his dinner invitation to Albert, promising something grander later,
And gives that look towards her window.
acknowledging the impact. His comment about not being taken by surprise feels loaded too. He knew this might happen.
Albert finds his mother later, completely distraught, veiled, smelling salts.
Clear signs of intense emotional turmoil. The encounter has shattered her composure.
We get that quick, dark story about the jeweler visiting Caderousse.
Right, setting up Caderousse's inevitable fall into robbery and murder. Shows his greed hasn't diminished.
Then Bertuccio's reaction to the house at O2.
Pure horror. The Count describes the garden, and Bertuccio just about collapses. It clearly triggers a traumatic memory, a dark secret tied to that place.
The Count, as Abbe Busoni, gives him that philosophical line about time and silence being remedies for evil.
For all evils, there are two remedies, time and silence. It sounds wise, but given the context and the Count's unsettling calmness about the garden's history, it feels ominous, like he knows exactly what evil happened there.
Then we see Danglars showing off his wealth to the Count, taking him to his wife's boudoir.
So ostentatious. Heavy furniture, pink satin, and Danglars openly dislikes it. Shows the lack of connection in their marriage, all about appearances.
And he tells his wife about selling the horses to the Count for a huge profit, calls the Count a madman.
Pure greed and cynicism. He thinks he's pulling a fast one, but we suspect the Count knows exactly what he's doing.
What a contrast when the Count visits the Morel family.
Yes, their home is modest but charming, warm. The little Versailles, they call their garden. And Cocles, the loyal servant, is still there.
And their welcome is completely genuine. Maximilian is overjoyed.
Deep gratitude. They haven't forgotten the anonymous benefactor who saved them years ago.
They show him the purse, the letter. Explain how it saved M. Morel from suicide, provided Julie's dowry.
It's incredibly moving. You see the real positive impact of Dantes' past actions before the vengeance began.
We also get that secret meeting between Valentine and Maximilian.
So much passion and devotion, despite her being engaged to France. Their love is a really important counterpoint to all this cynicism and betrayal.
Then Madame de Villefort's creepy conversation with the Count about poisons.
Right. Her fascination is deeply unsettling, asking about how easy they are to get, how hard to detect, major foreshadowing.
Madame Danglars pushing Albert to introduce her and Eugenie to the Count. Social climbing.
But Eugenie couldn't care less. Shows her independence.
And Haydée's reaction when Morcerf's name is mentioned.
Pure fury. She reveals he betrayed her father, Ali Pasha, sold him to the Turks. That's the source of Morcerf's fortune blood money.
A huge revelation connects Fernand directly to unspeakable treachery.
Albert and Debray visit the Count, partly out of curiosity, partly because Madame Danglars sent them.
And Albert admits he finds Eugenie too rich for him, feels intimidated.
Shows that power dynamic again. The Count encourages the marriage, though, talks about Albert's noble name, social standing, framing it as mutually beneficial. But you wonder about his motives.
The Count mentions expecting a guest. Lucullus dines with Lucullus. Cryptic.
And then Major Cavalcanti arrives, looking rather staged.
Seems like the Count orchestrated his appearance.
Almost certainly. And Cavalcanti has this letter, this whole fabricated story about finding his long-lost son, Andrea, and an order for a lot of money from the Count.
Setting up another deception. The fake son, Andrea, is also part of the Count's plan.
Exactly. An elaborate charade involving these two imposters.
Maximilian is worried about Valentine. He asks Noirtier about Madame de Villefort's motives for opposing the marriage. He suspects something sinister.
He senses the danger to Valentine. He knows Madame de Villefort doesn't have Valentine's best interests at heart.
And Valentine herself sees right through Franz. Says he's calculated, never gives her a real smile.
She's perceptive. She knows it's not about love with friends.
Noirtier, paralyzed but still sharp, demands a notary using his eyes.
Incredible force of will. He clearly intends to change something legally, likely regarding Valentine's inheritance or marriage.
Villefort tries to stop him. He knows his father might disrupt his plans.
He fears Noirtier's influence. But Barrois, the loyal servant, insists on following Noirtier's wishes.
Loyalty to the old master overrides the current one.
The notary arrives. Valentine interprets for Noirtier, a powerful image of their connection.
Villefort, pressured by the Count, finally explains why Noirtier opposes the marriage to Franz, whose father was a Bonapartist general. It's because Noirtier himself is a die-hard Jacobin, anti-royalist.
Reveals the deep political chasm in the family. Villefort is desperate to hide his father's radical past, mentions his father's terrible theories in pursuit of achievable goals, hinting at a dangerous ideology.
Madame de Villefort suggests telling Franz about Noirtier's disapproval, giving Franz an honorable way out.
Seems considerate, but probably serves her own agenda getting rid of Franz, so Valentine is free, perhaps for someone else, or maybe worse.
Villefort and the Count argue against breaking the engagement. Bad for Valentine's reputation, they say. D'Epinay's honor is invoked. Complex motives all around.
Definitely. Everyone's playing their own game.
Madame de Villefort casually mentions her husband dislikes the Auteuil house, unknowingly hitting a nerve with the Count again.
Another link to that dark past. The Count files it away.
Debray shows up with Madame Danglars. They pass a secret note. Smoothly.
Yeah, facility that indicates frequent practice.
Their affair is clearly ongoing and well-rehearsed.
Caderousse resurfaces, trying to extort more money from Andrea Cavalcanti.
Still greedy, still desperate, demands a monthly allowance. Andrea, full of his new fake importance, dismisses him coldly, wants to cut ties with his past, asks about becoming a peer of France.
High ambitions for an imposter. But Caderousse isn't easily gotten rid of.
No, he refuses to leave Paris. Says he'll be arrested without papers and hints he'll drag Andrea down with him if caught.
Cunning and dangerous. He knows he holds leverage over Andrea.
The Count sends Bertuccio off to Normandy to buy that estate, another piece moving on the chessboard.
While Villefort is digging, trying to find out how the Count knows about Auteuil, he contacts Monsieur de Beauville.
The plot thickens, and the Abbé Busoni reappears, summoned by the Count, back in his monk's disguise.
Ready for the next phase of the plan, whatever it may be.
Tragedy strikes the Villeforts again. Madame de Saint-Méran arrives, already grieving, and collapses, mistaking Villefort for her dead son-in-law.
Her mind is clearly failing under the weight of grief. The atmosphere in that house is just thick with sorrow and impending doom.
Villefort looks terrible when he comes to Madame de Morcerf's ball to fetch his wife and Valentine. Pale, distraught.
Something is clearly wrong. Valentine notices his state immediately.
Maximilian and Valentine have another intense secret meeting. He's impatient, wants them to be together now. She reassures him.
Their love is the only pure thing in this mess, but the pressure is immense.
Maximilian is waiting, agitated, for the moment Valentine is supposed to agree to run away with him. He's literally trying to speed up time.
His anxiety is palpable. So much rests on this moment.
But then Madame de Saint-Méran dies, and Dr. d'Avrigny is immediately suspicious.
He examines her, sees the signs. Poison. He's determined to investigate.
Villefort panics, begs d'Avrigny not to hold an inquest, fears the scandal, his enemies.
He knows how bad this could look for his family, for his career. He's desperate to keep it quiet.
Albert, meanwhile, is just trying to fulfill social duties, plans to see Eugenie Danglars at a party.
Oblivious to the storm brewing elsewhere, until Danglars interrupts him with loud applause for some music.
So typical of Danglars. Superficial.
Then Danglars has a private word with the Count. Hints about Fernand and Yanina again. Suggests a shared, dark secret.
When Haydée tells her story, Morcerf tries to interrupt, help her remember the French officer's name.
But the Count silences him. He wants Haydée's testimony pure, unprompted.
She recounts the moment the French officer brought news of her father's pardon, followed immediately by the demand for her mother's ring. The betrayal is swift and brutal.
A devastating sequence of events. Hope followed instantly by treachery.
Valentine is filled with dread, fearing Maximilian will burst in and ruin everything, thinks of him like the tragic Laird of Ravenswood.
She's caught between love and societal pressure, fearing disaster at any moment.
Maximilian sees Franz and Villefort talking secretly. Then Valentine arrives, reassures him silently.
Their silent communication keeps their hope alive, but it's so fragile.
Noirtier makes his move, agrees to Madame de Villefort's request, but then immediately dictates his will, disinheriting Edward, leaving everything to Valentine.
On the condition she never leaves him. A masterstroke. Protects Valentine and thwarts Madame de Villefort.
The Count mentions Yanina again. Albert jumps in defensively, reveals his father's name is Fernand.
A seemingly small slip, but hugely significant, connects Fernand directly to the place of Ali Pasha's betrayal.
Albert demands Beauchamp retract the newspaper story about his father, still defending him.
Clinging to the illusion of his father's honor.
Valentine quietly promises Maximilian that now, with Noirtier's consent, she will be his.
A moment of pure hope for them.
She outlines her plan. Maximilian visits her under Noirtier's protection. If their love holds, she'll claim her own hand.
A risky but hopeful strategy. Depends entirely on Noirtier's protection and their own resolve.
Then Barras collapses. The loyal servant dies right in front of Noirtier.
Horrifying. His last words are of devotion to his master. Deeply unsettling.
Before it arrives, Morel is hiding, terrified, watching it all.
Noirtier is trapped, unable to help. His frustration must be immense.
D'Avrigny confirms his suspicions. Barras was poisoned. He asks about the emetic.
And Villefort gives him the one already prepared. Likely by the poisoner.
Oh, God. Villefort unknowingly administers the fatal dose.
Barras realizes it's too late. Dies. The poisoner in the house is clearly still active and getting bolder.
The Count and Ali hear an intruder. It's Caderousse. Mortally wounded.
Stumbled into the Count's house after trying to rob it, perhaps.
Seems likely. And he makes a deathbed confession to the Abbé Busoni.
Rejects God, recounts his betrayals. Dantes, the jeweler, spills everything. The Count forces him to confront his life of crime before he dies.
Albert finally learns the truth about his father. He's devastated, ashamed, but also furious. Vows revenge on his father's enemy.
A complete shattering of his world. Grief mixed with rage.
Beauchamp advises him to just leave Paris, let the scandal die down.
Sensible advice that Albert won't hear it.
No, he's determined to confront the Count.
He goes to the Count's house, insists on waiting, even when told the Count is bathing. He needs that confrontation now.
Mercedes intervenes. In a tearful scene, she releases Albert from the duty of vengeance.
An incredible act of love. She knows it will destroy him, so she takes the burden of dishonor onto herself to save her son.
Albert prepares carefully, then goes to the opera with Beauchamp.
For the public confrontation.
He confronts the Count in his box. Beauchamp and Chateau Renaud are with him.
The tension must be incredible.
Morel sees this confrontation and finally understands. The Count is Dantes.
The pieces click into place for him in that horrifying moment.
We learn the exact wording of the denunciation letter that sent Dantes to prison. Pure fabrication.
Laying bare the original sin, the foundation of all this tragedy.
Then Mercedes goes to the Count, calls him Edmund, pleads with him.
Begs him not to destroy Albert, not to ruin her memory of the man she loved. Tells him about her years of suffering, the nightmares.
It's incredibly powerful, and it works.
Yes, out of love or respect for her, the Count agrees to sacrifice his vengeance against Albert. He'll spare him.
Mercedes is overcome with gratitude, acknowledges his nobility.
And the Count realizes his heart isn't dead. Mercedes has reached him.
He worries she might still try to stop the duel, even though he's promised to spare Albert.
He knows her strength, her desperation.
But then Albert shows up at the Count's house, unexpectedly.
What now?
He confronts the Count again with his friends, but the Count is calm.
Serene, even. He knows something Albert doesn't.
Albert goes home, says goodbye to his things, prepares to leave his old life behind.
He's accepted the truth, a shame.
His valet tells him his father has summoned him.
Morcerf wants to see him.
But Albert tells the valet, "Tell my father I have apologized to the Count."
Wow. A final, definitive break.
Oh.
Choosing honor over defending the indefensible.
He sees his father leave the house alone, then visits his mother's room silently. A farewell.
The end of his life is Albert de Morcerf.
Morel sees the Count's calmness and is terrified. Thinks all hope for Valentine is gone.
But the Count just smiles reassuringly. Hints that help is coming.
Danglars is furious with Eugenie for refusing Cavalcanti.
She stands firm. He claims financial ruin.
But Eugenie calls him out, reminds him of all the money he just showed her.
She knows he's lying, or at least exaggerating. She sees through him.
He finally admits it. The Cavalcanti marriage is his last desperate gamble to save his credit. He's truly ruined.
His empire is collapsing.
Andrea Cavalcanti makes a run for it, pursued by police.
His fake identity is crumbling. He's caught trying to flee, tries to scribble a desperate letter before they grab him.
Meanwhile, Valentine is slowly recovering. Morel visits Noirtier daily, sees her progress. Relief.
But her sleep is still troubled. Nightmares, hallucinations. The trauma lingers.
D'Avrigny tells Valentine the awful truth. The first poison was neutralized by Noirtier's antidote, but another poison, a narcotic, has been used since. The danger isn't over.
My God. The poisoner's relentless.
The nurse's bell rings frantically. They find Madame de Villefort dead.
Suicide. Or did she take the poison meant for someone else? Villefort's devastated, finds her lifeless.
He snaps, rushes to the Count, accuses him of causing the deaths of his wife and child. Young Edward is also found dead, presumably poisoned by his mother.
Villefort is broken, lashing out in grief.
The Count sees the bodies. He goes pale. He feels he's gone too far, tries desperately to revive the boy, takes him to Valentine's room.
A moment of genuine horror and perhaps regret for the Count. Has his vengeance consumed innocence?
Mercedes cries out, "Edmund!" A cry of despair.
Recognizing the terrible culmination of his journey.
The Count reflects. His vengeance is complete, but it leaves him with an abyss of doubt. No satisfaction.
The emptiness of revenge.
He revisits the Chateau d'If, reflects on his suffering, on Feralia, trying to make sense of it all.
Connecting back to the beginning.
Danglars is now a prisoner himself, held by bandits, starving. Peppino taunts him about his lost millions.
Poetic justice. Hoist by his own petard.
Morel is in despair again, tells the Count he can't live without Valentine, wants to die.
He's lost all hope.
Threatens to kill himself right there if the Count doesn't let him go.
Utter desperation.
But the Count tells him to sit. Wait. Hints at a miracle.
What does he have planned?
Haydée is amazed, fearful, as the Count tells her she will soon be free, her name and fortune restored.
Everything she ever dreamed of.
But her reaction is heartbreaking. "Then you leave me, my lord."
She's realized her freedom means losing him. Their bond is deep.
His final words to her are gentle. Forget him. Be happy. A bittersweet ending for them.
He's setting her free in every sense.
So wrapping up this first deep dive, we've seen the seeds sown, haven't we? The initial betrayal, the rise of the Count, the web of secrets.
Absolutely. And the enduring themes are all there. Justice versus revenge, the corrupting effect of wealth and power, love, loyalty, hope, despair. It's all laid out.
And that final thought for you, the listener. Just consider how those first actions, Danglars' envy, Fernand's ambition, Villefort's self-preservation, how they ripple outwards. One injustice creates waves that crash over so many lives for decades.
It really makes you think about consequences, doesn't it? The intricate chain reaction of human choices. and, of course, to see how it all ultimately plays out. Well, you have to keep reading The Count of Monte Cristo.